In the last video, we found out that the White House goal of 110 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2050 actually translates into 44 gigawatt years deliverable, and this is out of a 1 to 2,000 gigawatt year of total demand that America will have. Now these numbers are all really rough ballpark figures, right? 1 to 2,000, quite the range, but they help you see that roughly speaking, the 110 gigawatt nameplate proposal is going to be about 4% of the total energy demand. I mean, that's if we, or 2%, could be as little as 2%. And you can see that much more clearly with these big numbers than you would with all kinds of little bitty numbers all over the place. I mean, seriously, here's the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and they're giving it to us in billion kilowatt hours. No context, billion kilowatt hours. Why not just call that a terawatt hour? They could do that if they wanted to. They're choosing not to. Also, they could use gigawatt years. They just have to, tell you how many hours there are in a year and divide this terawatt hours by that number, which is 8,760. But they don't. Again, they're choosing not to. But let's continue. So you can click on this graph and it's interactive and it's fun. And you can see, well, some states have more wind than others. I don't know if this number, like billion kilowatt hours, is designed to just make you feel like there's so much going on.
Gosh, we're all really impressed.
But it doesn't help you wrap your head around the end game or just finishing this, right? It's just big and expansive and ever growing. And how much has it been growing? Well, from this chart, also from the EIA, we can see that it has grown a lot. And it is now up to 434.81 billion kilowatt hours, which is also 434.81 terawatt hours, which is also, divide by 8,760, that becomes 49.6 gigawatt year. So 49.6. Now you might notice that it says here that this represents 10.25% of energy demand. And you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, didn't you just tell us that 44 gigawatt years, which is practically 49, is only 4%? So what's going on here? What's going on is that I'm talking about total U.S. energy demand once we electrify everything, including cars and houses, which people say is the goal, right? That's the goal. However, these guys and most people, when they talk about this, are talking about total U.S. electricity generation. In other words, our present electricity numbers. And that's a big difference. Our present electricity numbers are 450 gigawatt years, whereas once we fully electrify everything, it's going to be 1 to 2,000. And that information is from Saul Griffith. He did this massive study. I will put links to it below. But the point is, if you're talking electricity only, present day, that's like 30% of the total, so 30% of 100%. And then if you're talking 10% of that electricity, that's 10% of 30% of 100%. So that's 3%. You see what I'm saying? You have to know what you're talking about, what field you're playing on, and the people who are talking to you, who are the experts, should really clear that up for you. And for me, for all of us. I shouldn't be the one trying to point this out. This should come from the top. What we really need is for the EIA itself to embed this information in their charts routinely. So for example, this chart, dudes, on the left-hand side, billion kilowatt hours, change that to gigawatt years. And then on the right, this percentage of total, just make it clear, percentage of total of present electricity use, and then include a second column, which would be percentage of total of hypothetical fully decarbonized USA. And that would clear all of this up. And that would take the burden off of me, because the burden should not be on me. It shouldn't be up to me or my fellow citizens to try to parse this information into something useful. This information, it's like we're reading the entrails of some expert's fever number dream. Dudes, how many gigawatts do we have down? How many do we have to go? And then, Also, what is the land use impact of these decisions? What are the ramifications of all of this? How can we compare our options and then build from the ground up?